Now, sometimes it's important to realize that quantities are being squared or cubed or units are being squared or cubed. They're being raised to powers. And we need to understand how to operate with that. So for instance, what if we want to talk about 1 cubic yard? So this is a picture of 1 cubic yard. And you'll notice that with a cubic yard, because a yard is equal to 3 feet, it's 3 feet going vertically, 3 feet going horizontally. And then we draw the X bars because the area is on the inside, just like we did before. Looks like a tic-tac-toe screen. Each of those squares has an area of 1 square foot. And how many squares are there? There's 9. So 1 square yard is 9 square feet. How can you do that without drawing a picture each time? Well, let's convert what 1 yard is to the 3 feet that it is. And then I just multiply the 3's and the feet squared, the feet times feet. So I treat them like units or like variables. 3 times 3 is 9. And then this is like a ft, as if it was a variable. Just as x times x is x squared, or 5 times 5 is 5 squared, feet times feet is feet squared. So 1 square yard is 9 square feet. We can understand that pictorially, we can see the relationship, or we can look at it from an algebraic perspective and apply the understandings of algebra, which apply to all things because it's mathematical, to the situation. What's the conversion factor between square feet and square inches? Well, square feet to square inches. Why don't you do a stop and start, see if you can get it without me. Then I'll go through the correct solution. Okay, so to square a quantity is to multiply itself. Therefore, 1 foot squared is 1 foot times 1 foot. But 1 foot is 12 inches. So I convert to 12 inches and 12 inches. And 12 times 12 is 144. Inches times inches is inches squared. So if we're converting to a squared unit, we square the factor. So the factor was 12. 12 squared is 144. If we're converting to a cubed unit, like volume, we cube the factor. So not only do the units get squared or cubed, but the factor gets squared or cubed. We can't forget that. Here's a practice problem. What's the conversion factor between square meters and square centimeters? Stop and start. Okay, so the factor is 100. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. That's what the factor is. So 1 square meter is a meter times a meter. But each of those meters is 100 centimeters. So if I just do my calculations now, 100 times 100 would be 10,000, right? When you're going to multiply just numbers with ones and zeros or numbers and zeros, you just add up the number of zeros. So in this case, it's 4, so you'll have 4 zeros in the answer. And centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. So that is 10,000 square centimeters. Okay. What's another application? Find the area in square yards of a rectangular room that measures 15 feet by 21 feet. So here's the tricky part of this. I would imagine that this would be a tricky thing they would put on Praxis, though in my studies of Praxis tests, I've yet to see it. It's probably there. I'll probably stumble across it. They want the area in square yards, but they give you the dimensions in square feet. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's do stop and start. You try it without me, then I'll go over it with you in just a minute. There's more than one way to do this, but let's start with our first approach. The area will be 15 feet times 21 feet, which is 315 feet squared, or square feet. But it wants yards squared. So what's the conversion factor? The conversion factor is going to be 3, and we're going from small to big, right? A foot to a yard. A foot is smaller than a yard. So I have to divide. 315 divided by 9. Why is it by 9? Because we're doing it feet squared. The conversion factor is 3, but it's 3 squared, which would be 9. Or you could do 3 and 3 again. 315 divided by 9 is 35 square yards. Okay? So 315 square feet, 3 feet each yard. There's your division factor, 35 square yards. Okay, this is if you if you were doing the technique where you cancel everything out, see? I set up the feet on the bottom. The yards are on the top, so that when I'm all done, I do the 315. In this case, it's going to be divided by 3 and then again, or divided once by 9, and you get 35. And in the top is left just y squared. So you can do this working out the units, or you can do this with either small to big or big to small. In this case, small to big, you're going to divide. And what do you divide by? The conversion factor is 3. And since it's squared, you're going to divide by 3 squared, which is 9. But there is another way you could have done this. You could have gone back to here and converted them each to yards. Could have divided right away. 15 divided by 3, because again, you're going from small to big, gives you 5 yards. And 21 divided by 3 gives you 7 yards. And multiply those and you get 35 yards squared. Both ways work great. Okay, next up. How many cubic yards of soil are needed to fill a planter that's 20 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 4 feet tall? Cubic yards are a measure of volume, by the way. Okay, give it a try without me. We'll do stop and start in a minute. Same technique, you're just going to do it 3 times this time because it's volume and cubed. Okay, so the volume is going to be 20 feet by 3 feet by 4 feet, which is 240 cubic feet. But it wants to know how many cubic yards. So feet to yards is small to big. Okay, feet to yards is small to big. So therefore, I'm going to divide, and the factor, of course, is 3. However, the factor of 3 has to be cubed this time because I'm doing feet by feet by feet, which means I have to use factor 3 times. So we're going to divide by 27, which gives me 8.8 repeating, or 8 1/9 of a yard, or yard cubed. Okay, so again, I went from feet to yards. A foot is smaller than a yard, so it's small to big, so I have to divide, and the factor is 3. But because it's feet cubed, I have to do a factor of 3 cubed, which is 27. Another way to do it, set up your 240 feet cubed, and then I have 1 yard is 3 feet, 1 yard is 3 feet, 1 yard is 3 feet. I set up my divides or my cancellations. There they are, and I'm left with 8 1/9 yards cubed. Yards cubed because I'm left with yard time yard time yard. Treat units like variables. Okay, if I had x times x times x, it would be x cubed. Now I have yard time yard time yard, which is yard cubed. Okay, here's another problem for you to do. Find its volume in cubic yards. And again, we're converting feet to yards. Stop and start. Okay, so here's my diagram. We always want to draw a diagram like we had said earlier in our praxis review. It's 8 feet by 12 feet by 4 feet. So what have we got here for volume? Well, volume is, well, we're going to talk later about this, but I prefer to look at it as area of the base times the height. But let's go with length times width times height here. 12 feet by 8 feet by 4 feet, which is going to be 384 feet cubed. Well, that's great. It's 384 feet cubed, but they don't want the answer in feet cubed. They want it in cubic yards. So if I'm going from feet to yards, it's small to big. So I have to divide. What's the factor? The factor is 3. But keep in mind, our units are not just feet, it's feet cubed. So I have to divide by factor cubed. The factor cubed is 27. So 384 divided by 27 is 14.2 repeating yards cubed, or 14 2/9 yards cubed. Now, how could we do it another way? The other way we could have done it is to say, listen, I want to just work out the units here. So it's 384 feet cubed times, there's 1 yard in every 3 feet, a yard in every 3 feet, a yard in every 3 feet. I multiply those, or I have the 384, and then I divide by 333, which is 27. I get 14.2 repeating yards cubed, or 14 2/9. And it works because all of the feet cancel out. I tend to be a fan more of the first technique, but sometimes I like the second technique, particularly if I'm in a bad mood and I want to cancel things out. All right, So there's also other units that we can consider. We can get into currencies and a bunch of other things. We'll do that a little bit later. For now, we'll stop at this particular point in time. And you know what? Nah, I changed my mind. We're going to keep going on the currencies. We got plenty of memory left before I have used up too much memory to post the video. So currencies conversions are just like the conversions of units. Okay, keep in mind per means to divide when it comes to this particular chart. So if you return from a trip to Europe with 120 euros, how many dollars do you have? Well, I need to put euros top and bottom. I started with the 120 euros in the top, so I can cancel them out. And the conversion factor is 1.272. Okay. How many US dollars can you buy with 12,000 yen? How many US dollars can you buy with 12,000 yen? This one let me do for you before you try to do it without me. 12,000 yen, and I want to get dollars per yen so that the yens cancel out. So it'll be 12,000 times 0.008965. Cancel out the yens, and notice that leaves me only with dollars. So that tells me the answer is dollars, which is $107.58. The really cool thing here is you never have to worry about squares and cubes when it comes to currency. Next up. How many US dollars can you buy with 5,000 British pounds? Now, you should go back and look at the previous table if necessary, but I also made it a point to tell you that there's $1.858 per pound. Okay, so I have 5,000 pounds I want to convert, and there's $1.858 per pound. I kill off the pounds, cancel them out. 5,000 times 1.858 is $9,290. So again, it's exactly the same as working with units of measurement, except now it's units of currency. Units are just units. How many US dollars can you buy with 500 euros? There's $1.252 per euro. Go ahead. €500 times $1.252 per euro. Cancel out the euros. That leaves me with 626. Remember, you're multiplying here. 500 times 1.252, $626. Okay. How many yen can you buy with $25,000? There's 111.5 yen per dollar. Well, I got $25,000 times 111.5 yen per dollar. The dollars can go die-die, and I'm left with 2,787,500 yen. How many pounds can you buy with $3,000? There are 0.5382 pounds per dollar. Okay, $3,000 times 0.5382 pounds per dollar, canceling out the dollars, and that just leaves me with 3,000 times 0.5382, which is 1,614.60 pounds. The currency you want always goes in the numerator. I wanted pounds. I made sure pounds were in the numerator. That's so the others would cancel each other out and they're no longer a part of the answer. Same thing with the yen.